Wilson. The other members of the board are Noel Halverson, Tommy Everman, Jim Hutchison, and Greg Babcock. And we're still waiting for Jim. We'll see if he comes on. But in the meantime, we'll proceed with what we have before us. Does anyone need to abstain from voting tonight? I'll take that as a no. Did anybody go out to visit any of the properties before us tonight?
No.
No.
I'll take that as a no from everyone. Did any of you speak with anyone regarding the variance requests we have tonight?
No.
Very good. Have you looked at the agenda from this meeting, and does anybody have any changes to it? We have 4 items. If not, I can't remember if we get an approval for this or not, but let's get a motion to approve the agenda just to be sure.
This is Noel.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, I heard Greg.
Second, Noel.
Got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 4-0. Regarding the minutes from the last meeting, which was a teleconference meeting on April 20th, does anybody have any comments or changes? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
Move
Make
to
a motion.
approve.
Okay.
Noel.
Second. Greg.
Okay, got it. Noel motioned, Greg seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good. Let's see, we got Jim yet? Nope. We heard from Jim, Paul?
I have not, no.
Okay. Okay, we can proceed into the first item, I guess. Is there something I'm forgetting? If not, go ahead. Paul, can you explain our first item?
Sure, yeah, I can remind you of this one. This may be familiar. This was up in February and was actually tabled by the board at 2089 Fern Lane. And the board wanted some additional details about the dimensions and wanted a revised application. So the application has been revised. It is attached within your packet. But the issue was this side yard encroachment, or there was plans to expand the driveway. I don't know if you can see my cursor here to the right of the principal dwelling there. They're hoping to do a 12 by 20 foot pad to, I guess, eventually park a trailer. So to just clarify the dimensions, which I think the board was interested in, the distance from the garage or the side of the home to Bader Street is about 32 feet to the right of way. The average setback looking up north of Bader here, going up about 3 or 4 homes, is about 26 feet. That's the average setback. So that 26 feet brought down here would be the applicable setback for this property. That would leave them about 6 feet short. They want a 12-foot wide pad by 20-foot deep pad along this side here. Again, let me see if I can scroll through some of these images. Yeah. So these were provided by the applicant, showing summation of where that pad would go. Again, this is kind of looking northeast. This is Bader Street here. This would be where the pad would go. A side view looking to the west. Again, this would become part of that parking area here. So, so those dimensions have been updated for your information. I did receive an email and I did talk to Perry Ackerman, who was at 511 Bader Street. I believe he's opposed to the request. He had sent a couple images. He lives directly across this way here.
About a block up, way up a hill.
He's at 511 Bader, which I believe is right across the street. So he has some concerns about the aesthetics. So just to pass that along on his behalf. Right. So, Don, back to you.
Yeah, was he one of the people that spoke at the meeting in Green Bay?
He was, yes. He spoke in person at the February meeting.
So what we have before us is a variance request to build into the side yard setback. 25 or 26 feet is what the setback would allow, and they want to encroach about 6 or 7, 8 feet. Is that what you gave, Paul?
I think it's about 6 feet, give or take. Again, I didn't measure that. I used the tools that I had available here. I did consult with the applicant about that, so we believe that's fairly correct.
Absent the need for a variance for the setback, is there any other city ordinances that would be imposed upon or objected to, because this is putting something that's parking it in a place that it's visible for everybody else?
Well, it's simply that encroachment into, I guess, the corner side yard setback for the property owner, and then the front setback for the other neighbors to the north. So there's no other circumstances, if I understand your question correctly.
Okay, so setback.
Correct.
The gentleman whose objection that you brought up with, that spoke in February and that brought up something today, is that the only one?
That's the one I received recently, yes. Except for those comments back in February, I haven't received anything else, no.
All right. Okay, is Mr. Phillips on this conference?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you want to speak up regarding any of the issues that have been presented by Paul?
Yeah, actually, the way it's,
See if Paul has the other picture.
yeah, I had sent Paul some other pictures. I don't know, do you have any of those available to you? Pictures of actually the trailer that was supposed to be offending Mr. Perry. And also, there's also on the property adjacent next door, there's also a privacy fence. There it is. That's up there.
Go on, there's another picture I sent him.
Yeah, I had sent some other pictures.
It was because we just resited the house and we took out some, we obviously improved the property. Perry's objection the last time, if you remember, was that we were bringing down the property value of his house. We can still put a trailer there as long as it's on pavers, and which we have. And we did send Paul the picture of that. If you notice the fence on this picture that you're looking at right now, that goes out well beyond the 10 foot.
That we are, yeah, we're willing to like compromise a little bit and go down to 10 feet, which would mean we didn't need an additional 4 feet. Now, since our house actually brings up the average of the setbacks, because we're 32 feet, everybody else is around 22 to 23 feet. And the neighbor, the direct next door neighbor is probably around 22 feet, if I get it correctly. So we're actually asking not to come out any further
Than her house.
with our piece of concrete. So I believe that's reasonable, and we don't obstruct any views there.
Because her fence is
Right. She could bear. She might be able to see a little bit over her fence. Plus, we're set down below quite a bit too, so that shouldn't block any of their views. And then the street views, as you can see here, there's absolutely no issue with that, just for having a trailer there. And the trailer can be there regardless.
Right, we're gonna put the trailer there regardless, whether Mr. Perry or, Perry likes it or not. It's on blocks, and you can put a trailer as long as it's on patio blocks or whatever on your property, and it will be there whether there is a driveway there or not.
No, so the driveway just makes it makes it easier, and probably it actually improves it aesthetically, because there won't be grass growing up around it or dying grass underneath it and stuff like that. And it will make it easier for us to hook up the trailer without having to drive on our grass, which we don't want to do.
We don't want to make mud. So
that's our point of view anyway.
Okay, thanks. Paul, is that the way you interpret it too? Is that they could put a trailer there regardless?
No, I don't quite see it that way. You have to be outside of all setbacks. You can put a trailer or camper or a boat as long as those wheels touch a hard surface. That is acceptable. However, you cannot encroach within any sort of established setbacks. So the only thing they could do would be to put in a 6-foot pad with a permit. They could not expand any further than that.
Okay. So that's why they're here.
That's why they're here, correct, yes.
I don't have any further questions. I'll turn it over to Noel or Tommy or Greg.
Well, I noticed in the description, thanks, Mr. Chairman, I noticed in the description of the item, Paul, you've got the former alder named. I suppose that's from an artifact of the initial appearance of the request. But we've got a new alder in this district, and I see that she's present in the meeting, so maybe she's got a comment.
Sure, thank you. I'm Lynn Gerlach. And so these are very close neighbors of mine. I know Perry, I know all of the people involved. This, as you know, this is a contentious issue. It's difficult. Everything about anything anyone does on any of these properties is difficult. But I have seen this. I think that Mr. Phillips is right. It is not going, the privacy fence will shield it from the neighbors to the north who do oppose it. I know that Mr. Perry will see it. I have seen the trailer. It's not an eyesore. I truly believe that this is not a problem. And if you feel that the variance is okay, I don't see that this is going to be a negative thing in the neighborhood. It will make some people unhappy, but that's just the way it is.
Thank you, Ms. Gerlach, and I apologize for not acknowledging your presence earlier. And I thank Noel for reminding me that we've had an election since I last apparently paid attention. So.
No problem.
Tommy or Greg, any questions or concerns?
Mr. Oh, sorry.
Oh. I was just going to say I don't have any questions.
Okay,
Greg.
I'd be willing to make a motion to approve the request, but narrowing it from the 12 down to the 10 feet that the petitioners have offered. If that seems like something that the rest of you would be amenable to.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. So we have a motion made and seconded to approve the variance as requested with the qualification that it be limited to, as I believe you said, Noel, 10 feet?
Instead of the 12, yeah.
Very good. Do we need to have any further discussion on this? Is there anyone else present on the call who wishes to speak for or against this project? Well, I think we can proceed with the voting. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. I heard 4. 4-0, and I think that's it since we don't have Jim. So, Mr. Phillips, Mr. and Mrs. Phillips, you have your variance.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for all your help. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
And Paul.
And Paul.
For all the help.
Good job. Thank you.
And Noel too, so.
But we are not going to
Well, don't thank me with
stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't mind.
You're welcome to.
Yeah,
Thank you.
all right.
Okay, we can proceed to the second item, which is Perry Lassay at 1825 Burns Avenue. It is also on. Paul, do you want to give us a presentation of what we have here?
Sure, thank you. This request was on the last Board of Appeals agenda in March, and actually the board, I believe, denied the request. And I think there was some caveat that the board members said that this item could be brought back due to some concerns with the applicant being able to get into the Zoom meeting. or actually it was a different type of meeting at that time. And that's the case here. The applicant had some issues. So we brought this item back to consideration. So the property is on the west side of Green Bay, 1825 Burns. Low density residential area, single family home, ranch home. This is a sketch that's provided by the applicant showing the expanded driveway. And that's the concern here, is that there was an expansion of a residential driveway without a permit. This is how it appeared, I believe, in 2017. You can see the basic ranch home, two-stall garage, standard driveway width, and then there was some expansion made here just outside the limits of the garage door to the side yard. So that is the issue. This basically came in a complaint to our staff. There were some junk vehicles and some other cleanup measures that had to be taken. And it was discovered that this driveway had been expanded without a permit. So the application is to retain that through some variance, basically. So again, the applicant's here, maybe they can speak more to the situation.
Hey,
Yes.
Don, point of order. We forgot on the first one. I'm not sure if it matters now, but opening the floor, that's something we've been working on trying procedurally.
Yes.
Do we need to kind of go back and do that? Or since we already moved forward without it, does it matter?
Oh, no, I apparently Jessie must not be on. She would have reminded me.
So
let's
motion to open the floor for the rest of the meeting to allow
let's do
participants
that.
to speak.
Let's do that, Tommy. Why don't you make a motion and presumably somebody will second it and we can move along.
Yeah, motion to open the floor for the duration of the meeting. If we need to close it, we will.
Second.
Very well. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did I hear you, Greg?
Thanks, Don.
Aye.
Very good. All right. So this is where we are. The applicant is proposing to keep what he already has, and what he has was put in without the necessary variance, perhaps not even a permit. Is that correct, Paul?
That is correct, yes.
All right. If the applicant is on, would he care to speak regarding this? Mr. Lassay, are you available?
This is Perry.
Okay, Mr. Lassay, did you have any further comments on what has been presented so far?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that concrete on there, I was having erosion problem on the side of my garage with the gutters, and it was washing out the mud down towards my neighbor's house. So I put gravel down there, and there was still erosion happening, and it was flooding out their basement. So I funneled that concrete back towards my own driveway to bring it out to the road. And now I can clean up my yard a little bit and put that trailer on the side with my snowmobiles on it. And I put my garbage cans back there.
And if we were to deny the variance, you would have to remove that concrete. What would be the alternative that you would do in that case?
Well, I would have to put the gravel back down. And
So your argument is that you are actually helping this erosion control problem, which is presumably the slope off to the side of your house.
correct, it's funneling down towards my neighbor's windows over on their side of the house.
Okay. I have no further questions. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Paul, just can refresh me, how wide is the non-conforming slab? Or how far beyond what is permitted?
I think it's 4 feet.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell from the photo. I'm not fully sure. I think the other issue is its proximity to the lot line if it's maintaining that 2.5 foot setback that's required.
And do you think it's
Neighbor.
encroaching within that setback?
It's possible. I can't confirm that.
Sure. Aside from, staff discovering this, has there been any neighbor complaints, or has the adjacent property owner had any issue with this slab that they've talked to you about?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So this came up, Paul, not because of the construction of the out of variance concrete, but it came up because of a neighbor's concern or complaint about clutter in the driveway?
I'm not sure of the origin of the complaint, except that a complaint was filed and our inspectors responded. There were several vehicles that possibly were not operable. There were other junk issues per se. I think they discovered that this driveway had been expanded, and they were able to clean up some of the other mess, so to speak, but this was the outstanding issue that still remained.
And how far can he be, or how close can he be to the property line with his concrete sidewalk?
I think the challenge here is that the closest you can get is 2.5 feet, but you're encroaching in the front yard setback. So a legal parking spot would have to go behind or to the side of the home or the existing garage behind the setback. So this is kind of a twofold issue. One is the side setback of 2.5 feet to the lot line. It's also a parking spot that doesn't lead to an area behind the setback. So there's two issues there to consider.
Right.
Okay, he's got.
My questions always kind of lead towards, like, I think where we're headed right now, which is, like, is there a possibility to conform to use, right? So, or is it just one of those things where there's just not enough space on the side of the house to do anything without encroaching on setbacks, right?
That would be my understanding. Again, I don't have real accurate dimensions based on what's provided, but I suspect, just looking at the photos, that there's not a lot of room in the side yard to create a parking spot, let alone expand the driveway. So I think that is a concern.
Thank you.
Just so everyone's aware, we did vote to deny this last time, but it's been brought before us again with the, it's whatever we did say isn't in the minutes, but apparently we must have allowed some qualification to our denial.
Yeah, I'm sure that was my doing, in that we didn't hear from the petitioner, so we kind of decided the case in absentia, as it were, and I just, thought in case there was a technical glitch that we should maybe give the petitioner a chance to talk to us about their request.
Okay, yes, I do recall that now. Thanks, Noel. Any further questions? All right. A motion would probably be in order.
I'd like to, before we get a motion, I kind of get a sense of where everybody's at on this. To me, I'm leaning towards more a denial. I don't necessarily know if a case has been presented yet for the need and other potential solutions. So to me, I feel like I'm needing more, but again, I always like to hear where everybody else is at as well. I tend to always want a bit more on this board versus others. So I'm just kind of looking to feel everybody out right now on their thought process. I'm more on the no side right now.
Paul, just a clarifying question, I guess. The petitioner mentioned that they're trying to do this to manage some of the runoff on the site. And if they did have to remove this, they'd put gravel back in there. I'm assuming that you can put gravel in your side yard all the way to the lot line if you wanted to, without necessarily requiring any sort of permit from us, right?
Well, sure. There's a difference between landscape material and a driveway. So gravel would be considered landscape material. You could not park on it. So, adding gravel in conjunction with the driveway is a poor recipe because then people are end up parking on it. So gravel is not an acceptable material for driveway expansion.
Tommy, regarding your point, I am sympathetic with the argument that there's not much choice for the applicant here. I'm a little neutral on it right now, but that's a far cry from where I was a month ago when I would have said no. I'd like to hear what Greg and Noel have to say.
I'm struggling with, and not that I think anybody who goes ahead and does something without proper permitting should, be allowed to get a pass and carry on with, some non-conforming work. But, hearing about doing this to manage runoff from his drain, his downspouts, trying to direct that to the street. I can imagine somebody, coming to that conclusion that they needed to do that and moving forward with what they were trying to do to be a good neighbor. And at the same time running afoul of the city regulations. So I guess I'm not, inclined to just off the top of my head say that we should deny this. But I'm not, I'm not going to make the motion to deny it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. Greg, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. So I'm further along than I was last time. I think last time my position was no, if I recall. But hearing more today, I am a little more sympathetic given what the intention was here about being a good neighbor. And so I would, if someone made a motion to approve, I would probably support it. I don't think I'm in a position to deny it. So, or vote to deny it at this time.
Yeah. We talk about, making motions subject to certain conditions and things like that. And we've got, I think, some latitude in terms of how we approve requests for variances. In this case, could we, I'm thinking about something a little outside the box. I mean, if we granted this request, but made it conditioned on there being no inspection violations for storage or inoperable vehicles or something like that for a period of a year, as a condition, so that it's saying, look, yeah, you said you're being a good neighbor, and now let's make sure you prove it by not having some of the issues that maybe got city out there in the first place. And if he goes a year without that, he can keep the slab as done. But if there's another violation, then he's going to have to remove it. Is that a doable thing for us?
I think that pushes the boundaries of conditions on approval and enforcement. It may complicate the enforcement issue and for us to track it, but
right.
I think that would be a stretch.
I just let everybody know. I think I'm going to vote to deny, depending on how the motion goes. I think this is a good example of a situation. When we take the pieces out, we look at just the land, right? And how the land is developed, and you take the owner and you sell it three owners down the road, and the property still exists there, right? And I think this is a good example of it there. I'm going to use it for what I think it can. I mean, the pictures that are even being submitted are showing, garbages, cans, not even where the picture is being labeled as such. And so this, right, like the use of this, if it's there, I'm going to use it. And I think, to me, this is where I tend to be a little bit more conservative, unless there's a very specific case that, like, hey, this is why this works and there's no alternative options to solve something. like, to me, it's more of a, hey, you know, and it stinks. It stinks that contractors or people that put in concrete, or whoever does it, doesn't have the wherewithal to support people that do things and say, hey, there's ordinance against this. You should probably look into permitting and stuff like that. But to me, the presentation, the case that it's being made, if I'm a judge, right, is not worthy of an approval at this point for me. So I'm going to vote to deny, just so you guys know. I mean,
Tommy,
again, depending on the board.
Tommy, since you've got the strongest feelings of the group of us, it sounds like, why don't you make a motion and see how that goes?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody votes against my denial, then I guess in the inverse, does it get approved?
Well, then we'd have to do a second action, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll make a motion to deny the request as presented.
I'll second it. Greg.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to deny the requested variance on Burns Avenue. We have 4 people. I think I see where this is going. Noel, Noel, did you have a vote?
Oh, or you're not just gonna call us all together? You want to roll call us here individually?
Yes.
I will vote in favor of the motion.
I will vote against the motion.
We do this individually. I'm voting for my motion, so it's 3-1, right?
Do we have Greg?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I supported Tommy's motion.
So we've got
3-1 to deny.
3-1. Okay. I was thinking we'd end up a little different than that. All right, Mr. Lassay, you did not get your motion approved.
So does that mean I have to remove it all, or can I just remove 2.5 feet away from the property line?
That's a enforcement decision.
Staff on that.
Yeah, I would have Perry to have you work with the inspectors on that issue and the time frame of the enforcement.
Okay.
It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. I'd work with the inspector. There's a time frame where we'd be looking for compliance, but the inspector is the point person to work with.
Okay.
All right, so no building permit. You don't,
No variance.
Could you buy one?
Okay.
Save.
Thank you.
do I have to get a building?
Thank
Do
you.
I have to get a building permit to remove the concrete?
Again, I would work with the inspector. They can give you the process of what has to be done. I don't think there's a permit that's going to be required. They'll help with the compliance issue.
Say goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, moving along, we'll get to the Braze on Nicolay Drive. Paul, you want to explain this one for us?
Sure, yeah, this is a property out on Nicolay Drive, up near the northern limits of the city of Green Bay at 3445 Nicolay Drive. This is the property highlighted here. It's a low-density residential district. The applicant is proposing to build a single-family detached home. The property is within the floodplain, as are most properties along the waterfront. They have applied for a Lomar F to take the property out of the floodplain, and they are in process of that at this point. The reason they're before the board is they're seeking a variance for the fill requirement. I think you see a handful of these a year. You might recall that in a floodplain situation, the first floor has to be elevated 2 feet above the base flood elevation, and fill has to be provided around the structure 1 foot above the base flood elevation, 15 feet around the structure. What they're proposing here is, you can kind of see the bay on this side here. Nicolay is over on this side. This is the rough footprint of the proposed home with the driveway coming out. On both the north and south side, they're not providing that 15 feet of fill. And so they can seek a variance to the Board of Appeals in lieu of the fill with some other alternative system. Typically, it's a retaining wall to do that. So I've been corresponding with the applicant today. I have some concerns, and maybe the applicant can clarify that for the board. I'm concerned about them meeting the side slope requirements, retaining wall height, and drainage issues on both the north and south sides. So I'm going to wait to hear from the applicant. Maybe they can clarify that issue for the board.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Bray, do you wish to speak?
I would, if possible. This is Joel Airforth with Mach 4 Engineering.
Hi.
Very well, go ahead.
Okay.
We're working with Mike and Teresa on giving them a hand on this project. And we originally started out doing a Lomar F. In fact, the application is in. The two structures that you see on the air photo and on the map have been removed. Fill was brought in, placed, and compacted. We did all the proper testing, sent all that information over to Paul. Paul submitted or gave us the community acknowledgement letter. We submitted everything to FEMA for the Lomar F. And then when the COVID situation, FEMA sent out a letter saying that they were suspending review of any flood related items. So our permit is hung up in limbo, and I believe they sent that out like a week after they actually had pretty much shut down, and it was supposed to go through April 30th. And to my knowledge, I haven't been able to find out anything that's saying they're up and running again. Not to mention the fear would be that if they've been haven't been reviewing something for 8 weeks, now is there an 8-week queue on top of the normal lead time, which could stretch into 14, 16 weeks. So the elevations we were dealing with were very close to where we could meet the floodplain requirements to build in the floodplain, and that's why we applied for the variance today. I'd sent Paul over some sketches this afternoon. What we're proposing is a short retaining wall on both the north and the south property lines. There's a 2-foot swath between the property line and the retaining wall that we got some, at that point there isn't much draining to it, so we can put a little miniature swale, if you will, and get the grading so we're not draining onto any of the adjoining properties. And then we have 3-to-1 side slopes coming up to the structure on both sides. I don't know if Paul had a chance. I admittedly got him over to him later in the afternoon. But we had cross sections of the retaining walls, which I believe meet the requirements of a 3-to-1 max side slope and a 2-foot high max retaining wall. And again, if the Lomar F had gone through, we wouldn't. I don't want to say wasting your time, but taking your time this evening, we would be probably on our merry way by now. But with this shutdown we're all living through, it's kind of throwing a wrench in the plans, and in the Brays we're hoping to move in a lot earlier than this is pushing us back to. So we're primarily applying for this variance to see if we can get going a little bit sooner than waiting for FEMA to open back up again.
Okay, Paul, did you have some questions?
No, I think Joel answered those questions. He did forward me some cross sections today that were helpful. I just would ask if you're going to consider recommended approval of this item, that you have a condition that it's subject to Chapter 13-1330 in the zoning code, in case there's any discrepancy that I haven't been able to see.
And we will submit a site plan, Paul, so that it'll have the erosion control and all those details on it through inspections once we're successful tonight, I should say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we've seen these before. I guess I can't say that I have any reason to question that there should be a variance here. I'm looking to staff to see if we have some concerns that I haven't brought up.
No, I think these requests are rather straightforward. We tend to rely on the professional to provide that design, and they've stamped the drawings saying that it's going to be compliant. I just didn't quite have all the information that I needed in time, so to speak, but I think we can work through that, again, as long as the board adds that condition. We are required to notify the DNR as well, and I did get concurrence from them. So they're not opposing this request. We don't offer recommendations, but I guess if we did, we would support this request based on the information provided.
All right, good. Thank you.
So I have a question. So it's not the case that if we approve this request this evening, that later FEMA could say, no, that's not okay or something? Where the application that has been put in has been consistent with the requirements? Is that what we're saying right now?
Yeah, I think there's two different processes. They provided fill on the site to, in essence, take the property out of the floodplain. Maybe that's to alleviate any floodplain insurance requirements. What's before you has to do with basic floodplain requirements for construction in the city of Green Bay. So it's a local ordinance that we're dealing with.
Okay.
The idea is that we want to have appropriate side slopes and design that accounts for drainage and aesthetics. We don't want to have a sheer wall at a property line. We want to have some flexibility where it comes back in or is tapered back into the natural grades. So they're two different issues, but I think they've taken the appropriate steps here to meet the ordinance.
All right.
Sounds to me like perhaps a motion is in order.
I would move approval of the request as presented, subject to meeting the requirements of Chapter 13-1330 of Green Bay Municipal Code.
You have an alder with a hand raised, just so you
Yes,
know.
I'm sorry, Ms. Dorf. Let me finish with the second, if there is one, and then we'll include you in any discussions we have after that.
Mhm.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Tommy?
second. Greg.
All right, we heard Greg. Very well. Okay, Alder Dorf, would you care to add any discussion?
Yeah, I would. So this is directed to Paul Newmeyer. Paul, you were going to call that constituent that had a concern. Did you get hold of him, and has that been alleviated?
I did talk to him last Friday. He had concerns about drainage. I don't know if I addressed all of his concerns. He may still have concerns. I suggested he could participate in this meeting, but I don't think he has. But
As did I.
That there's a professional design going to be proposed and will have to be implemented. So, like a lot of things, we'll have to monitor the activity and make sure that it's compliant to the plan that's provided.
Okay, because I encouraged him to be on this call as well, and he did not call me back again. So as a result, I don't have any objections at all. I would be in favor of this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dorf.
Thanks.
All right, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. I think we can proceed with a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, I heard 4. You have your variance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Just to the board, we'll continue to work in good faith with both the neighbors to the north and the south.
Good.
Excellent.
I just would like to make sure that the board, that there's a condition again that it meets the floodplain ordinance standards of 13-1330. That's understood.
Correct.
Yeah, that was part of my
Understood.
motion.
All right, thank you.
I would think that's understood. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
I think we can move on to the last item on our agenda, the Green Bay Water Utility. Who do we have on that wishes to speak with that?
This is Brad Hartis, civil engineer with R.A. Smith
All right,
Water Utility.
thank you. Paul, would you care to fill us in on what's going on here?
This is a property on 631 South Adams Street, just south of East Mason Street. This is the Green Bay Water Utility. It's kind of their hub, it's their office as well as their yard. So a lot of the Green Bay Water Utility activity comes out of this site here. They are proposing an expansion on the site. This is South Adams Street here. We kind of changed directions a little bit. And Cass Street. This is the existing operation here, this is the existing footprint of the building and existing parking. What they're hoping to do is expand the parking area here and some other paving, I believe, just near Mason Street. So the issues that we have is kind of twofold. They have to do with setbacks, front and corner side. So South Adams Street represents the front yard setback. In a PI district, that's a 15-foot setback. Along Cass Street, this is the corner side yard setback. That would also be 15 feet. So the pavement is encroaching within those two setback areas. The applicant had talked about the impervious coverage, and that is another concern. In the PI district, it is 50%. I think they've stated 80%, which was probably based on my site plan comments from some time ago, but actually the max impervious coverage is 50%, and they're going to exceed that on the site. So again, it's the encroachment into the front and corner side yard setbacks and the impervious coverage being over 50%.
Okay, would the applicant care to speak to the issues that Paul raised?
Well, on the north side of the building will be the building expansion. The area that he mentioned up there is already pavement. We'll be repaving it as part of the building expansion, just so that works. So the paving is better. On the north side, you can see where it's a darker gray there. That's their yard where they've got the material bins back there. That's the vehicle bays over there, and then we just repave that. So it's pavement replacing pavement. On the south side, on the Cass Street side, there's parking right now. You can see in our variance request that on most days it's pretty full parking between the people who work there and people who are coming in. There's usually about a stall or two available. So they want to expand and allow for more parking, off-street parking. There's a development that's going in across the street on Adams, on the west side of Adams, which will also have street parking. So expanding the parking and allowing, there's about 20 or so more spots would help alleviate any off-street or on-street parking from either staff or people coming in to pay their bills or having meetings and things like that. We will also have screening. There's going to be some evergreens between the sidewalk and the parking on Cass Street there that runs along that entire length there for screening on that side. And when it comes to the setbacks, it's for the parking on the south side there to allow for parking expansion. As far as the impervious percentage, I did think it was 80%, but now that we hear that it was 50, it's currently at, I want to say 74%. I think that was in the application as well. Right now, as is, do nothing. It's at 74, so it's obviously well over the 50%. Putting the building expansion alone increases it up to 79. And then if you go with the parking expansion, that goes to, I believe it's 84. So we are already well over the 50% on that, but putting in the building and the parking lot would put it up to 84%.
Brad, could you just give us your name and address for the minutes, please?
Sure, it's Brad Hartjes. That's Hartjes. And company is R.A. Smith, 100 West Lawrence Street in Appleton. And I believe Kristen from the water utility is on as well. If I missed anything or she has anything to add.
This is Pat Fehrenbach, the architect, if I could speak.
Okay. Pat, there you go.
No, my name is Pat Fehrenbach. I'm with Short Elliott Hendrickson at 425 West Water Street in Appleton, Wisconsin. We've been working with the utility for a couple of years now on this expansion. Excuse me. So the parking lot expansion, right now they have the drive-through. There's an entrance only off of Adams Street. that entrance to this parking lot will stay at the same location. It's an entry only off of Adams. They drive through and then exit onto Cass Street. So it meets their demands currently for their parking for the staff and customers, but a lot of that requires staff and customers to park on the street. So with their expansion, they're bringing a few more staff in. So the parking spaces that we're adding along Cass Street are more for their employees, which will be pulling in there in the morning and leaving at the end of the day. So it's not like it's really going to increase traffic in and out of that street. If anything, it's going to be getting cars off of the street where they're parking currently. So we're really doing it for safety of the customers as well as the employee. I just wanted to make that point clear.
Did you, either of you, R.A. Smith or Mr. Fehrenbach, prepare a plan that would have been consistent with the city's ordinances, at least to the extent perhaps of the setbacks? I'm trying to decide what you have tried to do and when you decided it was impossible to go further.
Well, there's 29 feet between where the setback would be and where the parking lot ends right now. So we have 29 feet to work with to stay within the setback or to not encroach. 29 feet to the drive aisles on a two-way are 24 feet. If we wanted to get something in there without encroaching, I think the best we could do would be have a one-way drive aisle with like a handful of parallel parking spots against it. There just isn't enough room there to put in substantive amount of parking in there and to make it match the requirements of parking for the city as well. 29 feet isn't enough room to put in anything more than one-way drive aisle and maybe a handful of parallel parking spots.
Okay. Do you have a lot of in-person bill paying?
Yes, the utility did a survey of their customers just to make sure that they still wanted that drive-through window, and they do have I can let Kristen and Brian perhaps speak to it, but they do have a fair amount of people that come in there. I forget how many vehicles a day it was, but it was a substantial amount of people that pay their bills. And there's also people that come inside the lobby and pay their bills on a monthly basis. And right now, most of those are parking out in the street and walking in. And there's also a computer in the lobby that they offer for their customers to use if they want to pay their bills online and don't have that service available in their own homes.
Thank you.
Yes. This is, I don't know if you can hear me, this is Brian Pohl. I'm the operations manager at the utility.
Yes, Brian.
Yeah, yep. I just wanted to add a little bit to what Pat was saying. That's correct. We were monitoring what was happening during the COVID itself, and we were still averaging 50 to 60 basically customers a day coming in, and that's when our lobby is actually closed and we had the drive-through only. So during the COVID, we were still seeing 50 to 60 a day. And just to add on, we do the billing not only for the water utility customers of Green Bay, but we also do billing for the village of Ashwaubenon, De Pere, Bellevue, and Wrightstown. And we also do all the sanitary and storm billing for the city of Green Bay. So it's more than just the water utility customers. So we have a fair amount of traffic coming in for people to pay their bills in person or through the drive-through itself. And to kind of incorporate along the lines of looking at other places to put the parking lot is that we're very landlocked. On the east side of our property, we have our vehicle building, which butts along Jefferson Street that runs basically almost the whole length of our lot. And then on the north side of our property is the Mason overpass, basically, and then the Madison off-ramp. And actually, during the winter, we actually have our employees don't want to park in our fenced in along there because we've had 3 different incidences over the years where the snow plows have kicked snow up over Mason and have busted out the windshields and crushed the hoods of people's personal vehicles. And then we touched on the new development that's going west of Adams Street. Right now, that's a multi-story development with commercial and living. And right now, our customers, most of them are parking on Adams Street because we only have 61 stalls available. It's 57 employees parking. So we literally only have a couple stalls available for customers. So the vast majority of customers are literally utilizing on-street parking on Adams, which will now be at a premium and kind of first come, first served basis, I guess, with more competition for those parking spots.
I was not aware of any of that. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Greg or Tommy or Noel, did you have any questions?
No questions for Greg.
No questions for me. I live right across the street, so I mean, I definitely see the parking lot full. I can see it out my window every day. But yeah, there's definitely a full parking lot and cars driving through there.
How many additional employees are going to be coming to the site with the addition to the building?
No more additional employees. We've been adding employees over time, and that's why we're doing a kind of the office remodel. So this is like a two thing. We're doing, our office itself is being remodeled so we can better fit our employees inside. Right now, we've been doing kind of hodgepodge internal, kind of stuffing them in like sardines a little bit. And then the other part is the actual addition, which is the addition is actually more for our mechanic and vehicle bays. Because right now our mechanic bays aren't really big enough to adequately service our vehicles. It's very tight, and we don't have what you would call a proper welding area also. So it's for some safety and size improvements. And then also additional parking, because right now we park a lot of our utility vehicles outside, and during the winter that's a little rough when we're coming at 10 below and have to start stuff up that's sitting outside. So,
sure.
But to answer your question, that was a long-winded answer to your question. We're not actually there's no more additional employees coming down. We're fully staffed down there as it is. It's just creating a little more office room and parking spaces for
You're accommodating growth you've already experienced, basically.
Exactly.
Paul, can you go back to that aerial photo? So the petitioner mentioned the reluctance of folks parking, in the vicinity of the Madison Street off-ramp from eastbound Mason. Now it looks like some of that is there's parking under there. There's a parking lot under there. Is that not all the water utilities parking? What is that stuff that's outside of what looks like the tax parcels there, Paul, that is underneath that right of way? I mean, is that part of the water utilities property or their use of that property? Is that something they're using?
I think it's just right of way, but Brian could probably better speak to how they've utilized it over the years. But I think it's just simply right of way from East Mason Street.
Well, I'm curious, I guess, is in terms of if the staff are unwilling to park there, do we really need to have that still be a big slab of asphalt, or can we, since we're losing that, that Cass Street frontage, which is actually one of the nicest bits of yard and trees on a municipal building that I've seen, can we do some greening up at the north end of the site, or to kind of reduce that impervious surface, if folks aren't going to be parking underneath the ramp?
Well, what we kind of have up there is we have our well house that sits kind of on the northwest edge of that property. And then we have our fuel pumps that are a little further to the east. And then further to the east is where we were having some of our employees park, which I'm sure, during the summer and fall and winter, we or excuse me, basically spring, summer, fall, they could still park under there. We have some utility vehicles and trailers that we park. And then further under, which is literally completely under Mason itself, Paul was right, that's actually city right away, but they let us put materials under there. Basically, that's our hydrants, pipe, valves, some stuff that, like the larger material that we can actually store inside, like our warehouse. So we have a lot of trucks, flatbeds, loaders, different material vehicles like that that are accessing under the bridge. It's kind of a fenced-in area there where we keep materials that we do repairs with. You know, we're
So
kind of
to Noel's point, you need that space and you use it, and you would prefer that it stay paved.
correct, yeah, because right now like I said, it's our storage yard for our materials, and we would need it to stay paved in order to access those materials with the sized vehicles that we need to actually access it. I said there's big flatbed trucks that we're accessing that storage yard with.
Thanks.
It is a little unfortunate that we have a water utility proposing to vastly violate the impervious surface requirement in Green Bay.
Yeah.
But short of moving, have you considered moving?
Yeah, I was going to just chime in. This is Pat Fehrenbach again, excuse me. Our first task in working with the utility was just that, a feasibility study. What should we do? Should we look for a whole new site? Should we expand to the neighborhood more to the west, and that residential, buy up some neighboring properties and expand that way? We didn't want to necessarily, and it would have been much more expensive to do that. Well, this building was built back in the 70s. We did an evaluation of it, and it's in great shape. So we felt it was worthwhile to stick a little bit more into it, and that this improvement will keep them going, for the next 20 to 50 years. So this proved to be the most economical just to stay here. They've got a good base. All their customers know where they are, and they like the area. So they're kind of right on the fringe of the downtown district, obviously, and the neighborhood there. So they liked their location and wanted to stay.
Good, thank you. Okay, gentlemen, what are your thoughts?
Well, I missed the fountain there. I'm tempted to vote to approve subject to them putting a fountain back on Adams Street, but that's a long time ago. I know, but I still miss it.
Yeah, it's been a few years now.
I'm leaning to approve. Obviously, they're doing what they can, to use the lot in the best way possible, take care of all their customers and employees. It is a shame. I mean, I walk that street, well, not today, but I probably walk that street every day since I've lived in the house that I'm at. And it is a beautiful, green space with the trees. And so it's going to be sad to see those go. You guys had mentioned there's some sort of screening that's going to go up. Is that along Cass Street?
It's along Cass Street, yes.
And what is when you say screening, what is that? Is it fence?
No, evergreens.
Oh, so there's some trees and stuff will go back in as you take the ones that are currently there?
Right. They won't nearly be as big. They're evergreen, like I think they're 6 to 8 foot high evergreen Christmas tree type plantings that'll run the entire length between the sidewalk and the parking lot there along Cass.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a shame to see trees come out, but trees going in is good. So, and they're doing the best with their lot. So I'm more leaning towards voting to approve.
Yeah.
This is Greg. I would vote to approve it. I think they're doing their due diligence. They're doing the best with their lot. There's obviously a need and a hardship with their the number of employees and customers, and having people park on the street, such as customers, I don't think is a good idea. And I just think they're doing the best they can with their lot. My office is close to the location, so I'm familiar with it and see the traffic, so.
Was that a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Very well. We have a motion made and seconded to approve the water utilities variance request. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very well. Good. Thank you, gentlemen. 4-0, you have your variance.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
You too.
Take care.
Right, I guess we don't have anything else to talk about. Any further discussion, Paul?
No, next meeting will be in June. Keep an eye on requests that come in and we'll see what that shapes up to be. But I have nothing further, no.
All right.
I have a quick question, and this is not, something we need to discuss tonight, but it's just an interesting thing to get some feedback on. We tend to see a significant amount of, we should motion to close the floor. I'll motion to close the floor.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, guys. Sorry. Anyway, is there marketing, training, something like that? Is it just the part of the world that we're in with these driveway expansions? Just there's this lack of education from either concrete pourers or it seems to me that it's always the concrete pourers and the contractors that take zero responsibility in terms of understanding what is possible, and poor citizens of Green Bay are trusting, I think, these concrete pourers to help them understand. And it seems to me we're just constantly in this case of trying to either undo what one's did or trying to tell them why they can't do something. Is there any way to improve that situation publicly?
It's a real challenge. We see it quite often. I don't know if there's a simple solution to that. In this case that you saw tonight, I don't know that a contractor was involved. I mean, a homeowner could do a small project like that possibly, but I don't know. We try and do the best we can to get people in to get permits. We try and educate where we can, but there's not a silver bullet. It's been a challenge, quite honestly.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Noel.
I was going to say, I think too, you can have situations where that homeowner believes that that the ordinance allows them to do whatever it is they're doing. So that vendor, even if they are coming to pour, says, "Hey, did you get the permit?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, it's all permittable. It's all okay, right?" And he's got a load of concrete that's got to get put down someplace. So, maybe they make a pour and they don't bother going deeper than that because they got the customers saying they did their homework, even if they didn't.
Yeah. It would be interesting if there's a way, I'm always trying to think of obviously different ideas or solutions to, minimize this, you know what I mean? And is it working with Home Depot and putting freaking signs in Home Depot, say, hey, putting up a fence or expanding concrete? Consider this city of, in the picture of the mayor or whatever, you know what I mean? Just something that's we can do a marketing or a Facebook page or something that helps people put the city out there saying, hey, we're here to support you. And my neighbor wants to put up a fence. They just got a dog. And I was like, oh, hey, interesting enough. I serve on the Board of Appeals, get a permit, right? Make sure you don't just build a random fence here. You have to go through all these processes. They're like, oh, we do? And I was like, yeah, and so I don't think there's a giant education piece that's missing. And so I'm not quite sure if there's a way to think about that long-term and promote something.
Yeah. Put a sign at the concrete mixer at Harbor Freight.
Right.
Well, I think it's also through our neighborhood associations as well. We can work with them and they're good at disseminating information. So, they're also a key player, but I think it's just something we constantly have to keep after.
Yeah. I think we're not the bad guys, right? And we're trying to do the right thing. And we're trying to be honorable and let people do what they want. It's just, it always seems to be whichever you want to look at, chicken or egg, whichever one's first, but it just always seems to be the backwards one, in a percentage. There are people that do it correctly, but that seems to be smaller than the ones not doing it correctly. And to me, that we should find solutions to try and inverse that. And that puts the city of Green Bay in a better position with a lot of negativity around, like they're not willing to work with people or stuff like that. If we can figure out ways to get more proactive with our messaging, there is solutions and you can do, and that's more positive versus the inverse, So just a thought, something to noodle on.
Good comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's always good to see you guys, but I will motion to adjourn. I'm hungry for dinner.
All right.
Second. Let's get out of here.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Bye, guys. Good to see y'all.
Thank you.